Hi, my name is Melinda Smith from Noble Works, the leading provider of Enneagram workshops in Australia. This video is part of a series about this ancient tool for personality profiling and development called the Enneagram. We've partnered with Port Stephens Council in New South Wales, Australia, to share our learnings about the value of using the Enneagram as a tool for personal and organisational transformation in the workplace. The Council has made a significant commitment during the past decade to develop staff to be the best they can be by using the Enneagram. Self-awareness is a key leadership competency. Self-aware people transform themselves and their organisations. In this episode, we'll be talking about the Enneagram Type 6. I'm here with Zoe Patterson from Port Stephens Council, who is going to share with us how the knowledge of the Enneagram has improved and helped develop relationships and performance, personally and professionally. So Zoe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been living in Australia for the last 30 years. I've been married for the last 28 years. I've got a couple of boys who are 21 and 18. I've been at council for the last 20 years. I came here as a temp 20 years ago thinking, I'll just be here for a couple of months till I get a real job, and I've loved it ever since. Probably the main thing I loved was I started working with a boss who I would probably have followed to the end of the earth. So when you find somebody you really want to work with, that's really why I stuck here. So
speaking about work, you've obviously enjoyed it, and Port Stephens Council has introduced the Enneagram here. How are you using that, managing your people?
So I use the Enneagram probably almost every day because I have 30 odd staff in our team. They're all very different in how they behave. I'm also part of a leadership team, a broader leadership team. I've got customers across the organisation, and I've got to understand how they operate so that I can actually build relationships with those people. So I'm constantly scanning, saying, okay, if you're of this type, what pushes your buttons? How can I better work with you? And equally, I'm constantly reflecting on my own behaviour and how I might have reacted when that may not have been appropriate.
So Zoe, can you help us understand what the world of a Type 6 looks like?
Questions, questions, questions. There are so many questions. I'm either thinking questions or asking questions. And I have to say a lot of that is actually quite, it's getting me to think ahead and working with people, but I know that I have work colleagues that say, enough. I have children that say, Mom, I can't answer that anymore. So it can actually be really quite difficult to pull back on those questions because I want to know, I want to understand. So there's a lot of that with questions. I suppose the other part of being a Type 6 is I've got a very curious mind. I like to understand what's going on. So for me, I constantly have to go for very long walks to try and find out what's sitting behind something, work through problems. And so the 6s are often, thinking all the time. Their brains never slow down.
It sounds very busy in there.
It may not make a lot of sense to everybody else, but in our own heads it does. I think the other part about being a 6 is around safety. Safety is very important to us. So I'm often in that safety space, and as a 6, it can be challenging not to magnify safety issues beyond what they actually are. So I often tell a story when I do Enneagram conversations with people about years ago. I was sitting there with my son who was playing his first rugby union game for he's probably under 7s or something. So I'm sitting there quite happily, sort of daydreaming. I wonder what happens if he gets hurt. Which hospital will we go to? Will I go in the ambulance with him, or should I drive the car? But if I leave the car here, what? So I had the whole script going in my head. He scored his first try. I missed the whole thing because I was busy planning for what might have gone wrong. So we need to be very careful that we don't send ourselves into spaces that just don't happen. Now, as it happens, he actually did at one point in time hurt himself, and he needed to go to hospital, but I'd actually already planned it in my head. So
perfect.
But generally speaking, it's a lot of wasted space.
We know that there's a bit of a spectrum there with Type 6. At the one end, we've got the phobic 6, which is more associated with flight, and on the other, the counterphobic 6, more leaning towards fight. Where do you sit on the spectrum?
Look, I would have to say I'd sit in the middle. I will generally move towards flight if I have to, because that would be my preferred option. I'd get out of a situation, but I will fight if necessary, but I just prefer not to. Fighting to me is full of unnecessary energy. I've got someone at the moment who's pushing my buttons, and I know that they're pushing my buttons, and I know that very quickly I could cut them to the quick because I've got a good response, but it's not pretty and it ruins relationships. So for me, it actually takes more strength to walk away from fight and do flight than to go in and fight the situation.
What are, for a type 6, what are some of the gifts and strengths that type brings to an organisation?
Look, we're always vigilant and alert. We're always looking at what might happen. We're always planning ahead. We're using strategic planning. We like to bring all the bits together. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. We like to bring all the bits together to help us see the parts. So at the moment I'm pulling together a number of strategies for our team, and I'm not in the detail. I've got other people in the detail. I like to just pull all the parts together so I can then tell a story about where we're heading. So 6s tend to be able to do that quite well. We're very loyal people as 6s, which is why I've been here for 20 years. It's why I stayed, because I had a fabulous leader to begin with, and I've now got another fabulous leader who I will stay with. And while they're still here, I will stay. Recently I had an opportunity to look elsewhere, and I, out of courtesy, went to that leader and said, I don't really want to leave you as an individual, and we work well together. So loyalty is very important. 6s bring that to an organisation. I think the other thing about 6s coming to an organisation is that we work collaboratively with people. We like to work together, and we use a lot of humour. I think I'm quite funny, not a lot of people else do, but I think I'm quite funny. And so humour helps sort of break down some of those barriers, and when people are all a bit uptight, we throw a joke in every now and again.
Right. Are there any particular strategies that you're working on personally as a leader, as a type 6?
Yes, very much about the sky is not falling. It's about managing that level of anxiety that can come. It's not just as a leader, it's in my personal life as well. I get to the point at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning if my sons have not arrived home. I actually have to say, worrying is not going to change the outcome. They'll come through the door or the police will come. I can't change it by worrying. So you have to sort of literally calm yourself down. And so that self-talk works. I think the other thing I am conscious about is how I maintain trust with people, because trust is very important to a 6. Once somebody's destroyed that trust, you generally don't get it back again. But I have to learn to trust people more, that they will deliver what they said they're going to deliver, rather than me, 24 hours later saying, have you done it? Have you done it? Because that really destroys the relationship.
You just touched briefly then on some triggers for a type 6. What does stress and anger look like for a 6?
Stress and anger can, look, like anybody, you can flare up immediately. I prefer not to, and so I will go for a walk to calm down. I'll make sure that I actually think about, is it a real concern, or have I just actually, it's not about me, it may be them having a bad day. So I do a lot of that to sort of say, let's put a reality check on this. Let's realise whether it's really as bad as it is. But when I get really angry, I prefer to remove myself from a situation till I've got my head clear. But I can be very sarcastic and cynical, which is that cutting part to why I don't really like going into the fight stage.
What's one thing that really presses a 6's buttons?
People who lie to me. If they lie to me, if you can't deliver something, tell me you can't deliver it. Or if you've got stuck with something, tell me you've got stuck with them. The sky's generally not falling if that's the case, but don't lie to me. And I really find it's very hard to come back from that level of, or that situation when somebody's, really told a barefaced lie. I'm going to deliver this and then can't. Or it's their fault and blame somebody else. Just be honest. I missed a deadline, sorry, what are we going to do about it?
And do you think that in those situations that affects that trust level that you spoke about before?
Yes, absolutely. If I'll give people the benefit of the doubt once or twice, but once they've proven time and time again that, they're not telling all the story, I've got a fairly good antenna for people who don't do that. Just be honest. We're a much better place if we're honest.
So if I was working with a 6 in an organisation, what are some of the things I need to be mindful about to build a good working relationship with the type 6?
So first and foremost, come with information, come with all the facts, come with a proposal that's as decent as it could be. Don't come with, oh, just trust me, because the old just trust me just doesn't work, because my alarm bells will be ringing the moment you say trust me. I had a situation recently with a work colleague who came and they were explaining a very technical solution to me, but they were able to break it down so I understood it, and then I knew that they actually knew what they were doing, and we said, off you go, here's the money, here's the time, go and do it. Whereas I had other people who come with a half-baked story. So the idea is, tell us what needs to happen, be honest with us, and we'll work through things together.
So you've been a manager here for many years, as you've shared with us. What is the value that learning about and applying the knowledge of the Enneagram has brought to Port Stephens Council?
It goes back to one of the earlier questions you asked me. It's about making sure that we constantly reflect on our own behaviours. It's about learning how we all are. It's about self-mastery. You need to understand yourself, what it is that makes you tick, but also other people. It's about being careful not to put people in a box. I've had, people who I think have a very unethical view of the Enneagram who say, you're a type 6, so therefore you worry, and I'm not going to deal with you because you're always worrying. That's not what it's about. It's actually so many layers to it. And once you start unpeeling those, it's absolutely fascinating about what makes us tick under different situations, and being able to understand how other people operate, so that my style with, say, a type 7 who I've got in the team is not to constantly follow them up and say, where's it at, where's it at? They'll deliver it. I've got others in the team who prefer more direction and, come and ask me tomorrow and I'll give you the answer. So it depends on where you're at, and relationships are so important to me. At the end of the day, I can't control what other people do, but I can control what learning I put in place to try and manage those relationships.
And from an organisational perspective, a tool like the Enneagram that can do what for an organisation?
I think it can help us come together better. It can help us work together better. At the end of the day, we're here for a fair whack of our lives, and if we understand that we all bring strengths to a situation, so if you look at all of the players in the Enneagram, they're all required to help problem solve. To come up with an idea, to help pull it apart, to get to the detail, to bring the people along, to have the courage to go out there, to drive it. Everyone's got a place in that, and the more we understand that, the better we can be.
And do you think that working with a cohort of people that understand and know the Enneagram, that must be an incredible experience?
Oh,
you're all talking the same language,
yes.
I would assume.
Yeah.
And so how has that helped in the workplace?
So the stronger relationships we have are those with those people who do talk that way and understand and put a mirror up first with themselves, rather than you're a this and you're a that. It's, oh gosh, that's how I've just reacted. I might need to sort of rethink that. And so the conversation is really good. There's some people whose understanding is very basic, and it'd be great to evolve that. Where they're still at the point of you're a 3 and you're a 6 and you're an 8. We're not our numbers. What we are is what sits behind it, what our trigger points are, what our fight or flight or whatever it might happens to us. And the more we understand that with each other, the better we are.
Zoe, thank you for sharing your story as a type 6 today.
Thank you.
Join us for another episode where you can learn more about each of the 9 Enneagram personality types as people share their journey, observations and insights. Also, check out our podcast series, Understanding Your Enneagram, on iTunes or our website.